Alright, welcome back to the channel where we are building a video game from scratch using Love2d and Lua. It's been a long day for me, but today I think we're gonna just try to get, like yesterday, I don't know if you saw K-Tronics, but I got a whole other world rendering. So like, the idea is when we walk into a cabin like this, it would load the inside of a cabin. So all of this stuff is what I'm calling the other world, and it's just all the stuff that isn't the overworld, right? So if we go in a cabin, it'll load us into a cabin over here. If we go into a dungeon, it'll load us into a dungeon. If we go into the underworld or whatever, it'll load us over here. So we have a way to load these in there. So like all the scenes are rendering, we get stuck, so we can't traverse worlds, which is good, but all the maps render as if they're normal on the normal global map. Yeah, dude. Yeah, K-Tronics, that's the tough part to balance, is you really do have to let go of a lot of that. It's not... Yeah, I think you need to... It's really tough, because like I'm kind of the same way, and it's just a recipe for burnout in a lot of ways. But yeah, it is tough. It's tough to find that balance. Oh, okay, but so the plan is today we're going to work on potentially transitioning from walking into a cabin into the inside of a cabin, or, you know, whatever it is. If that's the tavern, then we make a tavern inside of a tavern over here, and then when we walk inside it, we trigger a scene transition. And then we ultimately load the other world instead of the global map, so that it looks like, you know, we just teleported her. So I'm kind of thinking like a curtains close, like a black curtain closing, and then a curtain opening up, right? But like, you know, not like a curved curtain, like literally just like blocks, squares going like that, and then maybe a fade on top of that. So like, when you walk inside, it fades with a close, and then fades black over it. And then when you come into the room, it fades up, and they come back out. So like, that's the kind of transition I'm thinking of. So we get to play around with that. So I guess what we can do, ideally, you know, it's just two black rectangles, and they need to be triggered with, for right now, we can just put it on a button and say, you know, when we hit Q or Z or whatever, it'll enable the transition animations. Then we can time it out, test it, and then once we have something we're kind of happy with, we can start to think about how we're going to implement it with the loading of the next map and how we trigger certain map loads, because the game is kind of dumb in a lot of ways. Like, the game only knows of the current map it's looking at. I mean, it has reference to all the entities and stuff in the other scenes, but in the play state, the game's only keeping track of the scene, and the scene is the current map and potentially the next map if we're in a scene transition. So it's kind of dumb in that way. Like, it only knows of one or two scenes at any given time, and depending which one you transition into, that's when the entities get loaded into active memory, essentially. So the triggering it to load in specific places, like that might get a little tricky, because if we have two doorways, one is a cabin and one's a dungeon, like, do we have like little hitbox detectors that take in a specific scene of the other world to load once we collide with? I'm not exactly sure, but today we're just going to try to get these transitions working. So let's set our color to black. And then we'll draw a rectangle half the size of our virtual width. So we will do a Love.graphics rectangle, and it'll be mode fill. We'll start it out at 0, 0 for the top left. The width will be a virtual width divided by 2, so half of our virtual width. And then a height of the screen height limit or virtual height. It depends, because like, do we want the scene transition to go over the HUD or not? Maybe over the HUD, right? So that, yeah, maybe over the HUD. So it should probably be virtual height then. So there's that, X, Y, width, and height. So we should have a black screen as a starting point here. Cool. And the virtual width scales with our Game Boy mode or not, so that's good. So the idea is we need two sides, right? And if we trigger a scene transition, those would need to slide in, and this would be the stopping point for the going into an area transition. And then as soon as we appear in the area, it would start here and then go outwards. So kind of reverse. And then a fade on top of that. So if that is the end point, we can just leave little notes for us, like this is end point for this will be a transition in, or a transition start and transition finish, right? So it's like, yeah, start is curtains close, finish is curtains open. So we can call it transition start and transition finish. Okay. Okay, so this, yeah, endpoint is the finish. So we'll take the finish, put it here, and then the start point would be, now instead of hard coding in the X and Y, we're going to want to put a variable in here so that we can move it. But the start would be just off screen. So this would be a negative virtual width divided by 2 as the X, and then a Y of 0, height of same height, virtual width, or virtual, oh yeah. X, Y width would be, yeah, virtual width divided by 2. And then a height of virtual height. So right now, if we try to render this, which we technically are just rendering this, it'll be off screen because it's starting at an X of virtual width divided by 2, and it's a width of virtual width minus 2. So the very first pixel of this thing would be 1 pixel off to the left side of the screen, which we can't see. So we need to give our X position is what we need to change over time, and we'll call it, oh Jesus, we'll call it transition X, or fade transition X. I'm deciding how complicated I want this to be with like fade transition start X, fade transition finish X, or anything like that. So I'm just gonna do fade transition X, and then we just need to know that when we do this at both fade transition X it needs to start off screen, which is virtual width minus divided by 2 negative, and then end at 0. So let's do something in our update function. So right before our render, right before our render here, I'm just going to go ahead and put if love.keyboard was pressed and if Z was pressed, just to test it. If Z was pressed, then we're going to trigger our scene transition. So we're going to say trigger scene transition. Gets true. Now there's a couple of things. We need to initialize these variables. So we need to go take it up here. We can make it local to this. I don't know exactly where this is going to live, in the play state or in a class of a transition. I don't exactly know just yet, but we're going to have this boolean and it's going to start off as true. We're not going to trigger the scene transition by default, but we have that. Now we need to initialize our fade transition X also. So we'll do our fade transition X. And it's going to be starting at negative virtual width divided by 2. So half the size of the screen, but all the way off to the left side of the screen. So it's not on. So that's what we initialized to. And then up here, right here, we set it to true here. No, dude, I don't know, like, maybe things have changed, right? I just know, like, people, I don't know, because you're a smart guy and you're a lot like me in the sense that you're that perfectionist, wanted to do a bunch of stuff, and that can be a recipe for disaster in the wrong environment. So just trying to look out for you, you know? Like, as long as you, like, know what it is, right? Like, I think you'll be okay, but it can be tough. So we trigger the scene transition. So we'll say if our scene transition is true, then we're going to take our fade transition X and we're going to multiply it, or we're going to add a sort of constant to it. 1, I think, will be too fast, especially since we have VSync turned off. We can go change that real quick because we only need VSync turned off for the web deployment. I just happen to have it. It's in our love.conf, which is not in our Harpoon here, so we'll just go find it real quick. There it is. So yeah, we want our VSync to be turned on so that we get the constant frame rate of 60, right? So that would mean we would probably scale it by delta time, actually. So yeah, we need to scale it by delta time. So we can say multiply by delta time, and we set the X position to be modified by now that we're modifying it by delta time, we can give it a bigger value. So, like, let's put 60, because running at a constant 60 FPS, multiplying it by delta time will shrink it down to 1, essentially, because delta time is the time in seconds. If it's running at 60 FPS, delta time is going to be about, it's going to scale this number to about 1, which gives us 1 pixel every second. And since there's only 100 pixels for the half of the width, I guess that would be way too long. So we can see how slow it is. It should be slow, but then we can scale this up as needed. So if we do trigger a scene transition, we want to move it over to the left, but we don't want to just move it over to the left. We want to clamp it to the end the end point. We don't want this X to go bigger and bigger and bigger till it passes the middle point of the screen. So we're going to want to clamp it here, and we're going to do that with a minimum function. So we're going to say math.min. We're going to take the smaller of two values. One is this value that is constantly getting bigger, and then the other value is going to be the limit, which is 0. So as soon as the transition X gets to be 0, then this math.min function will just return 0 so that we don't go further. And then we can say something like if fade transition X is greater than 0, then we would go ahead and stop triggering our scene transition. And this works because, right? Hey, that's the goal, is like, you know, I mean, I got to get my foot in the door somewhere first, but then, you know, hopefully I can pull some strings, you know. I mean, you don't want to move here though. You want to move to greener places. So this works because our fade transition X is a negative number. So that's why the math.min works. Actually, yeah, I think we need a math.max actually. We want the bigger of two values. We want either that negative number that keeps getting bigger, and if it's bigger than 0, we only want 0. We want the bigger number. Yeah. That's the dream. Okay, so let's see, because like we're modifying our fade transition X, and our fade transition X is what we're rendering our transition to look like. So we'll just render it once. It starts off screen, and it should be getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Once we press Z, it should go bigger and bigger, real slow, only one pixel per second. Scroll on. So that's kind of what I'm expecting to see once we hit Z. Shit. Okay. All right. Well, okay. Fade transition X. That's always the best, when it just like, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Really young. I feel old though, because I'm like stoked that I got my Roth IRA set up and partially funded and everything. So I'm like, yeah, I got my Fidelity account, and I'm like, numbers. Okay, Z is pressed. Trigger scene transition becomes true. If scene transition, we're going to take that negative number, and let's just say, for right now, because I don't know where I messed up, but we're going to say, all we're going to do is say fade transition X gets the current X plus, let's just say that 60 times delta time. Let's just see if it screws up. Oh, look at that. That's basically what I want. Okay, yeah, the X position stopped. Heck yeah, dude. Heck yeah. Yeah. Well, dude, like, I mean, I feel it because like now I'm like, I like watch videos about the economy, you know, like you know, like growing up, you hear your dad like in the room blasting like economics, and you're like, dude, why you care about that shit? And then here I am, I'd be like, oh my god, they're cutting interest rates. I'm like, yeah, it's gonna be crazy. Oh man, okay. Something's wrong with our... What's weird is how come it's clamping? Oh, because of 0. Oh, okay, so if it's greater than 0, we need to set it to 0, then become false, so it doesn't go past that point. I know, dude, it's bad. Here we go. Z? Perfect, look at that. It doesn't look like it goes quite to halfway, but maybe that's just bad. Maybe, or that's, you know, maybe that's me just wrong. Let's. Oh, dude. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's on you, though. Yeah, that's on you. I mean, I do the same thing. I don't have the excuse anymore. I used to have a 05 Hyundai Accent, and I've got, you know, you can floor that thing, and you are gonna be lucky if you hit the speed limit. But now I've got a manual, so I don't have that excuse anymore. But it still happens to me. Yeah, I've just learned, you know, a decade of driving slow. Yeah, yeah. No, I do like driving fast. Like I'll downshift and like go, you know, it's fun. But I don't really speed. My version of speeding is going like 3 over, 4 over, 8 over if I'm not paying attention. Okay, so we want to do the right side. Yeah. You got to play it cool. Like, if you're gonna be driving like that, you got to be filming it so they can see it on YouTube. The thing is, this is only for the left fade, so I think we want to substitute any fade here with left fade, because there are 2 sides to the fade. So we'll do this where we'll draw the left fade, and then we'll draw the right, and we draw them both at their respective X positions. So this would be a right fade, right? So we need to initialize this right fade and then modify it appropriately. So we'll say, we'll give us a variable here called right fade transition X. Now the right fade is going to be our virtual width positive, and then this needs to become left fade. Okay, so we start the right fade at the virtual width because it needs to be off the right side of the screen. Oh. Oh yeah, it's definitely funner to be the... Yeah, dude, there's no fun in being pissed off on the road. No fun. Yeah. It's like, dude, what? You're gonna hit me right now? Like, go for it, dude. I'm insured. Whatever, dude. Yeah, it is careful. Like at least in my town, you can't go really, you know, like if you flip someone off in my town, like that's dying. That's potentially dying. So like, you gotta be cool. Okay, so we got this right fade transition X, and then yeah, it ain't worth dying over. It's worth ignoring, and you know, there's a certain amount of, I won't say laziness, but you know, if like when someone comes like speeding up on you, and they're like clearly wanting you to go faster or whatever, you don't have to go faster. But if you're going under the speed limit, then they might try to really, you know, brom you. I just call it brom when they when they fucking gun it past you. Like, whoa, holy crap, that guy brommed real good. Okay, so right fade transition X needs to get smaller. smaller by our time frame here. So we'll shrink it and shrink it and shrink it until it gets to be the right fade transition X would have to become smaller than the half side of our screen. So our virtual width divided by 2. And if that's the case, we need to set our right fade to be equal to that middle side of the screen. So like right in the middle. Hopefully they overlap okay. And then also, since they're at the same time, we shouldn't need to do trigger scene false. But we'll see. Oh, dude, yeah. You know, that's a dash cam is one of the things I've been wanting to actually get, because even just today, like, dude, I mean, drivers are nuts. Nuts. Like, it's dangerous if you just drive like a robot, paying attention to the rules only. Like, you have to be vigilant. Oh, look at that. That's exactly what I wanted. And did it stop too? Looks like it's... That's exactly what I wanted. Okay. Oh, and dude, what I want, and K-Tronics, you're perfect for this, because I want to get for my like sign off for the end of streams, I want to be able to like hit a button and have it do this, and then roll credits of people who are either credited supporters in the game or people who are active in chat or something. I don't know if I can pull. I don't think I can pull active chatters into. Yeah, I don't know. But I'm wanting to do like a run credits, like a thank you credits right before I sign off for streams. I think that could be cool. Okay, so what I'm wanting to do is, I don't like this. I don't like this logic here, because it's like we're shrinking this every single time. Well, no, we do trigger it to be false, so then this would stop triggering. I wanted to do the math.max, but this is doing, the math.max would essentially do this line and this line just in one, and not necessarily, but we still have to ask if it's, we have to be able to set the scene transition to false to stop doing the math.max anyway, so I guess it's fine. So I guess let's see if we can get a fade to black triggering on top of this. So, curtains close and then fade to black as it's closing. So it's kind of like a multifaceted kind of fade real quick, And then we'll have to do, if Z is pressed, so like we'll do, if Z is pressed and we're not in, man, we gotta do a trigger starting scene transition. So if Z is pressed and we're not in the trigger starting scene transition, then we want to trigger the starting scene transition. Otherwise, if love.keyboard.was pressed Z and trigger scene transition. No, and what did I just do? Trigger scene transition is true. Then we want to trigger our ending scene or our finished scene transition start trigger, because I'm wanting to test both the closing. Yeah, dude. Hey, no worries, dude. Thanks for hanging. Yeah, no worries, dude. Thanks for hanging. Yeah, I want to figure out something like something like the credits. I think would be cool. I mean, the curtain close is kind of working for it. So like maybe, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It'll come together. Okay, if Z is pressed and we have not triggered our scene transition. What am I doing? Yeah, hey, have a good night, K-Tron, dude. Yeah, have a good night, dude. Yeah, this is wrong. We need another boolean. We need like a starting scene transition finished. Because because we're using the same button to trigger the starting and the ending transition, so we need something like starting scene transition finished boolean, and then if Z is pressed, and then we do the finish scene transition finished, or starting scene transition finished is true. No, starting scene. Oh my god. Starting scene. Yeah. Starting scene transition finished. So if Z is pressed and we have not finished the scene transition for the starting yet, then we go ahead and trigger it. If Z is pressed and we have finished our starting scene transition, then we would trigger our finishing scene transition. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we need a starting scene transition finished declaration. We're gonna start out as false on the starting scene transition finished. Now what that's gonna allow us to do is to hit Z. Oh god, come on, dude. Okay, when we hit Z, it'll default to this one first because the starting scene transition is not finished by initialization. Then we trigger the starting scene transition. Cool. Then when we're triggering the starting scene transition, you know, we need to do this trigger starting scene transition. Then we're going to update our fade transition X. And then it's almost like then we set trigger scene transition. This should be trigger starting scene transition. Oh, we gotta commit before 20 minutes so that we can get our green dot in for the day. Trigger scene. Okay, let me just see if we broke anything. Yeah. End on play state 418. Was it? 418. Huh? Yo, what did we do? That is just not helpful debugging at all. It's like we're just missing an end somewhere, but we've got everything as far as I can see. We've got that. Holy cow. I don't see where it's crashing. Yeah, it doesn't like... What's going on? I must have accidentally deleted something. I don't see where it is, though. In the render function, this all looks fine to me. Let me see if we screwed something up here. Okay, something in here. Did we screw up our else if? Is else if one word? Really? Okay, so hit Z. Okay, so the second time we hit Z, if Z was pressed and our starting scene transition has finished. So once it hits here, we'll go ahead and say starting scene transition finished. That's true. And then trigger finishing scene transition will get true. So then we'll say, you know, this will be if our trigger finishing transition, if trigger finishing scene transition, then we want to update our X position to be, let's see, because we've got two sides. We've got a left fade and a right fade. The left fade would be, I think we just need to swap these around. We just need to swap them around so that they go in the opposite direction. And then instead of closing, the left fade would be opening. So if left, yeah, then we just need to swap this. If it's smaller than 0, then go ahead and say that we are false on the trigger finishing scene transition. And then same with here, trigger finishing scene gets false. And then we need to swap this to be greater than. And then we set, yeah, we still assign them. Okay, let's see. Let's see now. So if we hit Z, it closes. If we hit Z, not anything. So if Z is pressed, if trigger finishing scene transition, trigger finishing scene transition, we would get, yeah, if Z was pressed and starting scene transition finished, and starting scene transition finished gets true here. Okay, let's, I don't know, just put it there as well. And, okay. We're close. Okay, if Z is pressed. So we know the trigger starting scene's working. So let's just try to get, see, and it's weird because the starting point for finishing scene transition, let's see, transition X would get smaller and smaller and smaller. That sounds right. And right fade gets bigger and bigger. That sounds right. And then if left, yeah, this is wrong. Because if left is coming in, then it's only when the right side of our thing. So if our left fade transition is smaller than the virtual width, the negative virtual width divided by 2, because that is off the screen. If it's smaller than being all the way off the screen, then we're setting the left fade transition X to become the just off screen. So virtual width divided by 2. And then if the right fade transition X becomes, if it's fading outwards, if it's greater than the right of the side, so like all the whole virtual width Then we're going to set it equal to the virtual width. And then stop triggering the scene transition. Let's see. Okay, closing. And opening. Great. Okay, and then it fails to trigger because fails to re-trigger because we don't have a starting scene transition finished getting flushed to false. So we'll do that at the end. Starting scene transition finished gets false right here. Starting scene transition gets false. And then gets false here. Okay, we should be able to trigger it on and on. Nice. Nice. Now, if you hit it more than once... Oh, nice. It doesn't overwrite like I thought it would. Perfect. Okay, so the idea is we come in here and we walk in here and it does a little... one of those. So what we can do is we can replace this 60 with like a constant speed that we can change, right? So we'll come in here and we'll replace all of our 60s with something like fade transition. Is that how to spell transition? Yeah. It looks wrong to me. I'm just tired. Fade transition speed. Okay. Oh my god. I really did that. I really did it. Oh no. Okay. Here we go. Fade transition speed. Okay. Now we need to go to our constants and actually declare it. We can put it, I don't know, fade transition speed. And what we'll do is we will set it to be twice as fast, just to test. So if we look at what it might look like, we're going to go in there. Yeah, maybe a bit faster. We just don't want people like waiting on it. Okay, let's try it. So it's like we're gonna come in here, gonna say do 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 do. Nice. Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Okay. So the next step is fading it on top of that. It's really late. We've only got a couple minutes. I think I'm gonna call it. We've got the beginnings of the transition, so that's good. Let's just look in here. Yeah, we just do some fade transition X stuff. I'm gonna say that we're gonna call this added scene transition effect proof of concept, something like that, and we'll get push. Okay, all right, tomorrow we'll work on the fading, the overall opaque fading, right? And then on top of that, so it'll close and it'll fade to black, and then it'll unfade from black and open up like the curtains. And then we'll be doing actual scene switching out, so that we can load in the tavern or load in a dungeon from our other world map. So that'll be fun once that works, because then we'll have like an actual way to traverse the world inside buildings or in dungeons and stuff. So that'll be a big step towards the functionality of the game. So I'm looking forward to that. It'll start to come together, you know. Once we have that, then we can work on the dialogue system for the NPCs. And then at that point, maybe we can add either another element or some more sprites for level design. Or a couple more NPCs. Don't exactly know, but it is coming together. So we'll get the scene transitions working tomorrow, and then hopefully we can get the game starting to load other scenes. And then we have to kind of think about how to do this, because right now we're just in the play state and we're just triggering local variables and drawing these things. Is there a better way to do this where we have a scene transition object so that we can just trigger whether or not we are transitioning in the play state, and then defer all the update logic and render logic into a scene transition class? I don't know. So I'll be thinking about potential ways to handle that also, and maybe we can pair that in with how we're going to load the appropriate scene to transition into in that class. I don't know. We'll have to kind of think about how that's going to work, but that's coming up next. And let's raid out here. We'll raid out to the homie. All right. Hey, thanks for watching. I'll be back tomorrow after hopefully getting some sleep.